You thought you could get away with this?
Please, calm down.
It wasn't what you think.
Lies! You're both finished!
The fork was halfway to Tiana's mouth when she heard her name hissed across the restaurant. She knew that voice before she saw the face. Tiana! Victor, her ex-husband, the man she had a restraining order against. He was already pushing past the staff, coming straight for their table. Diners turned. Security started moving. Tiana couldn't. Her body locked the way it used to when Victor was angry. "You think you can just disappear?" he shouted as he reached them. His hand shot out and cracked across her face. And then she heard it. Not a shout, not a gasp. The soft, deliberate sound of a chair being pushed back. The soft, deliberate sound of a chair being pushed back. The whisper of expensive fabric. The calm, measured footsteps of a man who had just made a decision. Tiana looked up through watering eyes and saw Hyun-Bin standing. He rose with the controlled grace of someone who had done violence so many times it had become choreography. His face remained expressionless, but his eyes had changed. They'd gone from warm brown to something arctic, something final. He adjusted his left cufflink with his right hand, a small, almost intimate gesture. "You just made," he said quietly, his accent barely noticeable, "a significant miscalculation." Victor laughed. Actually, he did. "What are you going to do, accountant? Bore me to—" He never finished the sentence. This story grabbed you, didn't it? Good, because we've got more tales of survival, danger, and unexpected love. Subscribe and let's keep going. 3 weeks earlier, Tiana had perfected the art of being nobody. She woke at 5:47 every morning, 3 minutes before her alarm, because sudden sounds still made her flinch. She dressed in gray or beige or that shade of brown that made people's eyes slide past her like she was part of the wallpaper. She drove to work using back roads, never the highway where Victor might spot her car. She parked in different spots each day, never establishing a pattern. At the library where she worked, she kept her head down. She shelved books in the back sections where patrons rarely wandered. She ate lunch in her car with the doors locked. She never joined the other librarians for happy hour, never accepted invitations to book clubs or weekend brunches. "You're like a ghost," my coworker Michelle had said once, not unkindly. "We barely know you're here." That was the point. Tiana had learned that being seen meant being found. Being found meant being hurt. So she made herself small, quiet, forgettable. She paid for everything in cash so there'd be no credit card trail. She didn't post on social media. She'd changed her phone number twice. She lived in a studio apartment under a different last name, in a building with 3 exits. Sometimes, late at night, she wondered if this was living or just a slower way of disappearing. But it was safe. Safe was all that mattered. Then Jax had cornered her in the break room, waving his phone like it held the secret to happiness. "Just one date," he'd begged. "This guy's perfect for you. Quiet, keeps to himself. You two can be invisible together." Tiana had said no 4 times before she'd said yes. She'd thought one dinner wouldn't hurt. Thought maybe she could start being a person again just for one evening. She'd been wrong. 4 months earlier, Kim Hyun-Bin had ruled an empire from a glass tower in Seoul. The Jade Serpent Syndicate controlled shipping routes from Busan to Los Angeles, money that moved through a dozen countries before breakfast, and enough political connections to make laws bend like reeds in wind. Hyun-Bin had inherited it all at 28 when his father died. By 32, he'd doubled its reach. He'd been good at it, cold when he needed to be, fair when it served him, ruthless when mercy would be seen as weakness. Then his own blood tried to kill him. His cousin Min Jun had smiled at the family dinner table while signing Hyun-Bin's death warrant, had poured him wine while hiring the assassin, had embraced him at the door while planning to take everything. The bullet had missed Hyun-Bin's heart by 2 inches. He'd survived only because his driver, old Park, had thrown the car into reverse the second he'd seen the muzzle flash. They'd crashed through a restaurant window, scattering glass and screaming diners. Park had taken 3 bullets, getting Hyun-Bin to the emergency clinic his organization kept off the books. Park had died on a steel table while a doctor with shaking hands dug lead from Hyun-Bin's chest. After that, Hyun-Bin had done what ghosts do. He'd disappeared. No phones, no guards, no connections to old life. He used emergency money his father had hidden years ago, money that Min Jun didn't know existed. He flew to America with papers that said he was nobody special, just another immigrant looking for quiet work. He'd become Kim Hyun-Bin, an accountant, a man who balanced books instead of bodies, who wore glasses he didn't need, and spoke softly and never made eye contact long enough to be remembered. He'd thought he could stay hidden forever, until a man named Jax had handed him a phone number and said, "I know someone just as broken as you." Jax Martinez had a gift for seeing what people were hiding. He'd met Tiana at the library 2 years ago, searching for books on starting over. She'd recommended 3 titles without making eye contact once. He'd watched her move through the stacks like smoke, there but not really there. He'd recognized that careful invisibility. He wore it sometimes himself. He'd met Hyun-Bin at the accounting firm that Jax worked as a consultant, the new hire who never joined office lunches, who flinched at loud noises, who had the hands of someone who'd done harder work than pushing pencils. He'd seen the way Hyun-Bin scanned every room like he was counting exits. 2 broken people, each hiding from different monsters. Jax had thought maybe they could hide together, maybe make each other a little less alone. "It's perfect camouflage," Hyun-Bin had told him over coffee that the other man barely touched. "You need to look normal. Dating is normal. And Tiana, she needs to remember what safe feels like. You're the most harmless-looking, dangerous man I've ever met." Hyun-Bin stared at him with those dark, measuring eyes. "You know what I am. I know you're running from something. I don't need to know what." Jax had slid a piece of paper across the table. "She's running too, from an ex who hurt her. You both deserve one nice evening without looking over your shoulders." Hyun-Bin had stared at Tiana's phone number for a long moment. "And if I bring danger to her? Then you leave. You're good at that, right? Disappearing?" It had taken Hyun-Bin 3 days to call, another week to agree to dinner. He'd chosen the restaurant himself, one with multiple exits and clear sightlines to every entrance. He'd prepared for assassins. He hadn't prepared for a jealous ex-husband with nothing left to lose, or for the way Tiana's smile had made him forget just for a moment that he was supposed to be dead. Tiana had arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes early and sat in her car for 12 of them, trying to remember how to breathe like a normal person. The bistro was too fancy, chandeliers and white tablecloths and waiters who moved like dancers. She almost drove away twice. But Jax had said Hyun-Bin was quiet, safe, someone who understood what it meant to need space. She walked in wearing the only dress she owned that wasn't gray, a simple black thing that made her feel less invisible. She hated that feeling immediately. Hyun-Bin had been waiting at the table, standing when she approached the way her grandfather had taught men should. He was exactly as Jax had described, neat dark suit, careful posture, eyes that didn't quite meet hers. "Tiana," he'd said, and nothing else, just her name, pronounced carefully like he'd practiced it. "Hi." Her voice had come out smaller than she had wanted. They'd sat. The silence had stretched between them like taffy, sweet but uncomfortable. A waiter had brought water. They'd both studied their menus like they contained secrets to the universe. "You said you work with books," Hyun-Bin had said finally. "At the library. I shelve mostly. It's quiet." She'd twisted her napkin. "He says you're an accountant." "Numbers are predictable. I like to be predictable." Another silence. Tiana had wondered if this was what dating felt like for everyone, or just for people who'd forgotten how to be around humans. But there was something comfortable in it, too. Neither of them had tried to fill the quiet with forced conversation. Neither had asked the questions that hurt. They just existed in the same space. 2 people who understood that sometimes silence was safer than words. Hyun-Bin had almost smiled when she'd ordered the same wine he had. "Good choice," he'd said. That's when she heard her name screamed across the restaurant.
Victor had been following Tiana for 3 days. He'd spotted her car outside a grocery store on Tuesday, that same gray Honda she thought made her invisible. He'd waited in the parking lot for 2 hours, watching her load bags into the trunk with those quick, nervous movements he remembered, the way she checked over her shoulder, the way she walked fast, head down, like the world might swallow her if she slowed down. He'd followed her home, watched her building, counted which window was hers by the soft glow of a single lamp. She'd thought she was so smart, changing her name, blocking his number, getting that stupid piece of paper from the court, like words on paper could erase 3 years of marriage, like she could just decide they were done. He'd lost his job because of her, his apartment. His friends had stopped calling after she'd told everyone her lies about him. All he'd ever done was love her, try to make her better, and she'd run away like he was some kind of monster. Tonight, he'd followed her to this fancy restaurant in the nice part of town, had watched through the window as she sat down with some Asian guy in a suit, watched her smile, actually smile, the way she used to smile at Victor before she'd turned cold. She was replacing him, moving on, like he'd never mattered. The rage had built in his chest like pressure in a shaken bottle. He'd sat in his truck across the street, hands gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. He told himself to leave, to call his lawyer, to handle this the right way. But then she'd laughed at something the guy said. Actually, she'd laughed. That sound had broken something in Victor, something that had been barely holding together for 18 months. He'd gotten out of the truck. The restaurant door hit the wall hard enough to crack the glass. Every head turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. A woman gasped. Somewhere in the back, a wine glass shattered against the tile. Victor stormed through the dining room like a hurricane given human form. His face was red, twisted with something that lived between rage and desperation. His work boots left mud tracks on the polished floor. "Tiana!" Her name came out like an accusation, like a curse. The hostess tried to step in front of him, her professional smile cracking. "Sir, please, you need to—" He shoved past her. She stumbled backward into a waiter carrying champagne. The tray went flying, glasses exploding across marble in a shower of crystal and foam. Security was moving, 2 men in dark suits cutting through the crowd, but Victor was faster, driven by 18 months of obsession and tonight's fresh betrayal. Tiana had gone completely still. Her fork clattered against her plate. The color drained from her face, leaving her looking like she might shatter if someone breathed too hard. "You think you can just move on?" Victor's voice carried over the shocked silence. "Sit here with this nobody like I don't exist, like we don't exist?" He reached their table in 5 angry strides. Hyun-Bin hadn't moved. He sat with his hands folded, watching Victor approach with the same expression someone might wear while observing an interesting bug. "You ruined my life!" Victor grabbed Tiana's arm, yanking her half out of her chair. "You owe me!" Then his other hand came up and cracked across her face. The slap echoed through the restaurant like a gunshot. Tiana's head snapped sideways. She crumpled, catching the table's edge as her knees buckled. And Hyun-Bin stood up. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. The change in Hyun-Bin wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but every person in that restaurant felt it. He rose from his chair with the fluid grace of something that had been coiled tight, waiting. The careful slouch he'd worn all evening straightened into perfect posture. The soft, hesitant accountant disappeared like smoke, revealing something underneath that had never been harmless at all. His eyes have gone flat. Cold, the kind of cold that comes from seeing too much death and causing most of it. Victor was still holding Tiana's arm, still breathing hard from his rage, still riding the high of finally taking back control. He didn't see it yet, didn't understand that the room had gone silent for a different reason now. Hyun-Bin adjusted his left cufflink with his right hand, a small gesture, almost casual, but there was nothing casual in the way he moved. Each motion was precise, controlled, practiced. "You just made," Hyun-Bin said quietly, his accent barely noticeable, "a significant miscalculation." His voice was soft, polite even, but it carried through the restaurant like a blade drawn from a sheath. Victor finally looked at him, really looked, and for just a second, something flickered behind his eyes, some animal recognition that he'd just cornered the wrong prey. But pride and rage made men stupid. "What are you gonna do, accountant?" Victor sneered, though his voice had lost some of its certainty. "Bore me to—" Hyun-Bin moved. Not fast, not rushed, but with the terrible efficiency of someone who'd done this so many times it had become muscle memory. He reached across the table and caught Victor's wrist. The grip looked gentle. The sound of small bones grinding together said otherwise. Victor's sneer turned into a gasp, then a whimper. "You touched her," Hyun-Bin said softly. "That was your mistake." Victor tried to pull away. His face went from red to white as Hyun-Bin's grip tightened. "Let go of me, you!" Hyun-Bin twisted Victor's wrist in a way wrists weren't meant to turn. Something popped. Victor's knees buckled, and suddenly he was the one being yanked forward, stumbling over his own feet. The security guards had finally reached them, but they stopped short. Something in Hyun-Bin's posture, in the casual way he controlled a man 50 pounds heavier, made them hesitate. "She has a restraining order against you," Hyun-Bin said quietly, his voice still perfectly calm, "which means you're breaking the law, which means when the police arrive, you'll be arrested." He pulled Victor closer, close enough that only Victor could hear the next words, but the look on Victor's face, pure terror, told everyone watching that whatever Hyun-Bin said wasn't kind. Victor made a sound like a kicked dog. Hyun-Bin released him with a small push. Victor stumbled backward into one of the security guards, cradling his wrist. His earlier rage had evaporated, replaced with something that looked like shock. "I suggest you leave," Hyun-Bin said. He'd already turned away, dismissing Victor like he was nothing, like he'd never been a threat at all. One of the security guards grabbed Victor's good arm. "Sir, you need to come with us." Victor let himself be led away, too dazed to fight. He kept looking back at Hyun-Bin with wide, confused eyes, like he couldn't figure out what had just happened. The other diners slowly started breathing again. Someone dropped a fork. Nervous whispers rippled through the room. Hyun-Bin knelt beside Tiana, who was still pressed against the table, shaking. He didn't touch her, didn't crowd her space. "Are you hurt?" he asked softly. She looked at him and for the first time really saw him. "Who are you?" Hyun-Bin's eyes flicked to the small black dome in the corner of the ceiling, the security camera, then to the one by the entrance, the one above the bar. His face was on all of them now, clear footage of him standing, moving, neutralizing a threat with the kind of training accountants didn't have. Min Jun had people everywhere, people who watched for patterns, for mistakes, for ghosts who stopped being careful. He'd just stopped being careful. "We need to leave," he said, still not touching Tiana, but offering his hand. "Right now." She stared at him, her cheek already starting to bruise. "The police are coming. I need to make a statement." "The police will take hours. We don't have hours." He glanced at the camera again. "Please, trust me for 5 more minutes." Something in his voice cut through her shock. She took his hand and let him pull her up. The restaurant manager was hurrying over, apology spilling from his mouth. "Miss, please, we've called the authorities. If you could just wait." "Send the bill to this address," Hyun-Bin said, pressing a business card into the man's hand. It had a law firm's name on it, a number that would ring 3 times then disconnect. "We'll cooperate fully, but she needs medical attention now." He guided Tiana towards the side exit, not the main door where Victor had been dragged out. His hand stayed light on her elbow, ready to let go if she pulled away. She didn't pull away. Outside, the cool night air hit them both. Tiana swayed slightly, and Hyun-Bin steadied her. "My car." "They know your car. They'll be watching it." He scanned the parking lot quick and efficient. "We take mine, just for tonight, just until you're safe." "Safe from who? Victor's gone." Hyun-Bin's jaw tightened. Not just Victor anymore.
Hyun-Bin's car was a black sedan, anonymous and clean. He opened the passenger door for her, then slid behind the wheel and pulled out of the parking lot without turning on his headlights until they'd reached the main road. Tiana watched him drive, her mind trying to catch up with the last 10 minutes. The way he'd moved, the way Victor had crumpled, the way he was checking his mirrors every 5 seconds like someone might be following them. "You're not an accountant," she said finally. "I am now." That's not an answer. Hyun-Bin's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He took 2 turns, then a third, doubling back in a pattern that made no sense unless he was checking for a tail. "Please," Tiana said, and her voice cracked on the word. "I just need to know if I'm safe with you or if I jumped out of one nightmare into another." He pulled into an empty parking garage and stopped the car, turned off the engine. For a long moment, he just sat there, staring straight ahead. "My name is Kim Hyun-Bin," he said quietly. 4 months ago, I ran an organization in Seoul.
Not a legal one. My cousin tried to kill me. He failed, but most of my people think I'm dead. If they find out I'm alive, they'll finish what they started." Tiana's breath caught. "You're—" "Yes." He finally looked at her. "I'm exactly what you're thinking. And tonight, I put my face on camera protecting you, which means the people hunting me will know I'm here, which means anyone near me is in danger." He reached for the door handle. "I'll call you a cab, get you somewhere safe. This was my mistake, not yours." "Wait," Tiana grabbed his arm. "What about Victor? He saw you too." Hyun-Bin's expression went cold. "Victor won't be a problem much longer." The safe house was a small apartment above a Korean grocery store in a neighborhood Tiana had never seen before. One room, one window with heavy curtains, a door with 3 different locks. Hyun-Bin made tea while Tiana sat on the only chair, holding an ice pack to her cheek. Her hands had finally stopped shaking. "You should go to a hotel," he said, setting a cup in front of her. "Somewhere public. Use cash. Don't tell anyone where you are." "Why are you helping me?" The question came out sharper than she'd meant. "You said yourself being near you is dangerous." "Because he hit you," Hyun-Bin's voice was flat. "Because I've spent 4 months running from violence, and I watched it happen right in front of me, and I—" He stopped, took a breath. "I couldn't let it go." Tiana sipped the tea. It was too hot, but the burn felt real, grounding. "What did you mean Victor won't be a problem?" "I made a call while you were in the bathroom. An old contact. He'll look into your ex-husband's background." Hyun-Bin sat on the floor, his back against the wall. His phone buzzed. He read the message and his expression darkened. "What?" Tiana asked. "Victor Thorne. Worked as a contractor for a shipping company, owned by the Volkov family." He looked up at her. "They're a Russian mob. Small operation but connected to larger networks, including networks that do business with Korean organizations." The room tilted. "You're saying Victor is not a member, but he moves in those circles, which means when he goes to the police about tonight, he won't just file a report. He'll tell them about the Asian man who broke his wrist, and someone will listen, someone who's been looking for me." Tiana set down her tea before she dropped it. "I led them right to you." "No," Hyun-Bin said quietly. "I chose to protect you. That's on me." Jax was locking up his office when the 2 men appeared in the parking garage. They moved like shadows, quiet and purposeful. One was tall and thin, the other built like a concrete block. Both wore suits that cost more than Jax's monthly rent. "Jax Martinez," the thin one said. Not a question, a statement. Jax's heart kicked into overdrive. He'd spent years working in gray areas, learning when to run and when to negotiate. These men weren't here to negotiate. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" "You set up a date tonight at Lombardi's restaurant." The thin man pulled out his phone, showed Jax a photo. It was Hyun-Bin, caught mid-movement as he grabbed Victor's wrist. The image was grainy, pulled from security footage, but the face was clear enough. "We need to know where he is," the concrete block said. His accent was thick, Russian maybe. "You're going to tell us." Jax's mouth dried. "I don't know what you're talking about." The thin man smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "Kim Hyun-Bin. You got him a job at your firm 4 months ago, helped him build a new identity, set him up with a woman tonight." He stepped closer. "You know exactly what we're talking about." "Even if I did know someone by that name, I wouldn't know where he is now." "Then you'll call him. Tell him you need to meet, somewhere public." The concrete block cracked his knuckles. "Or we'll visit the library where your friend Tiana works, have a conversation with her instead." Jax's blood turned to ice. "Leave her out of this." "Then make the call." They handed him a phone. A number was already pulled up, ready to dial. Jax stared at it, his hand shaking. He thought about Hyun-Bin, who'd trusted him, about Tiana, who'd finally started to live again. His finger hovered over the call button. Dawn broke gray and cold through the safe house window. Tiana hadn't slept, neither had Hyun-Bin.
They'd spent the night in careful silence, two strangers bound together by violence neither had asked for. "You should eat something," Hyun-Bin said, offering her a container of rice and vegetables from the store downstairs. Tiana took it but didn't open it. "Can I ask you something?" He nodded. "When you had all that power back in Seoul, were you happy?" The question seemed to surprise him. He sat down on the floor again, keeping distance between them. "I never thought about happiness. I thought about survival, control, making sure no one could hurt me first. That's not living, that's just existing in a bigger cage." Hyun-Bin looked at her, really looking, like he was seeing something he'd missed. "What's the difference?" "Living is choosing things because they make you feel something good, not just because they keep you safe." Tiana finally opened the container, picking at the rice. "I did what you did, spent 18 months hiding, trying to control every little thing so Victor couldn't find me. But I wasn't living, I was just waiting to get caught. And now? Now I'm sitting in a safe house with a mafia boss, and somehow I feel more alive than I have in 2 years. I laughed, but it came out bitter. That's messed up, right? Maybe. Or maybe we're just both tired of cages." They ate in silence. Outside, the city woke up. People walked to work, bought coffee, and complained about traffic. Normal people living normal lives. "I used to paint," Tiana said suddenly. "Before Victor. I was good at it. I haven't picked up a brush since I left him." "Why not?" "Because painting made me visible, made me feel things. Safer not to." Hyun-Bin nodded slowly. "I used to play piano." "Past tense?" "Dead men don't make music." Victor sat in a dim office above a warehouse, his wrist wrapped in a brace, nursing a rage that had only grown sharper overnight. The men across from him didn't look like criminals, they looked like businessmen. Expensive watches, tailored suits, but their eyes were cold in a way that made even Victor uncomfortable. "Let me understand," Dmitri said, his Russian accent thick. "You want us to help you get your wife back?" "Ex-wife," Victor corrected, that the word tasted like poison. "And she's with someone, that Asian guy from the restaurant, the one who did this." He lifted his broken wrist. The two men exchanged a glance. Something passed between them that Victor didn't understand. "Describe him again," the thin one said. "Everything. How he moved, how he talked, what he did to you." Victor went through it all, the humiliation fresh and burning, the way the man had grabbed his wrist, the quiet, precise way he'd moved, the look in his eyes like Victor was already dead and just didn't know it. "And you're certain he was Korean?" "Yeah, had an accent and everything." Dmitri smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made Victor wish he'd never walked into this office. "Mr. Thorne, you've just done us a very valuable service. We've been looking for this man for 4 months. You found him in 1 night. I don't care about your business. I just want Tiana back. She's mine, and that man has no right. We'll get you your wife, but first, you're going to help us get what we want. You're going to call the police, file a full report, make sure that security footage gets into the right hands, and then you're going to do exactly what we tell you." Victor hesitated. "What are you planning?" "Nothing you need to worry about. Just know that when we're done, Tiana will have nowhere to run except back to you." The sound was so small Tiana almost missed it, a soft scrape of metal against metal. The doorknob, turning slowly, testing the locks. Hyun-Bin was on his feet before she could blink. He pressed a finger to his lips, then pointed to the window. His other hand had produced a gun from somewhere, black and deadly looking. Tiana's heart stopped. She hadn't even known he was armed. The scraping stopped. Silence stretched for 3 heartbeats, 4. Then the door exploded inward. Hyun-Bin shoved Tiana behind the small kitchen counter and fired twice. The sound was deafening in the tiny apartment. Someone grunted in pain. Heavy footsteps retreated into the hallway. "Go!" Hyun-Bin hissed, pointing to the window. "Fire escapes, now!" "I'm not leaving you. They're not here for you. Go!"
More footsteps, multiple people this time, rushing up the stairs. Hyun-Bin fired through the doorway without looking, buying seconds. Tiana ran to the window, fumbling with the lock. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip it. Behind her, Hyun-Bin was moving, fast and controlled, using the door frame for cover. The window finally gave out. Cold air rushed in. Tiana climbed onto the fire escape, just as another figure appeared in the doorway. Hyun-Bin turned, fired. The man dropped, but there were more behind him. Too many. "Run!" Hyun-Bin shouted, and then he was out the window too, grabbing Tiana's hand and pulling her down the metal stairs. Bullets sparked off the railing above them. The grocery store owner below was screaming, people scattering. They hit the alley at a dead sprint. Hyun-Bin pulled her left, then right, through a maze of back streets he seemed to know by heart. Behind them, shouting, car doors slamming, the sound of an engine roaring to life. "They found us!" Tiana gasped, her lungs burning. "They always find me. We just have to be faster." They stopped in an abandoned subway station, Hyun-Bin checking over his shoulder every few seconds. Tiana leaned against a pillar, trying to catch her breath, her mind racing faster than her heart. "There's a church 3 blocks north," Hyun-Bin said, reloading his gun with swift, practiced movements. "The priest doesn't ask questions. You'll be safe there while I deal with this." "No." He looked up, surprised. "This isn't a discussion. These people will kill you just to hurt me. And you'll what? Fight them all alone?" Tiana pushed off the pillar, something hot and angry burning in her chest. "I've been running for 18 months. From Victor, from my own shadow. I'm done running." "This is different. These aren't angry ex-husbands. These are trained killers." "I know." She stepped closer. "And you need help. You need someone who can blend in, who people don't notice, someone who spent years being invisible." Her voice cracked. "You said you taught me about living. Let me teach you about surviving without power." Hyun-Bin stared at her like she'd grown a second head. "You're asking me to put you in danger?" "I'm already in danger. Victor partnered with your enemies. They know my face now. They know where I work, probably where I live." She grabbed his arm. "The only way either of us makes it out is together. You could get hurt, killed. I could. Or I could spend the rest of my life wondering if I let another man decide my choices for me." Tiana's jaw set. "I'm not that person anymore. Maybe I never should have been." Something shifted in Hyun-Bin's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition of something he understood too well. "You're sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." He nodded slowly. "Then we need to stop running and start hunting." The public library was busy at noon, exactly as Tiana had known it would be. Dozens of people on computers, students studying, homeless people staying warm. The perfect camouflage. She sat at a terminal in the back corner while Hyun-Bin pretended to browse the reference section, watching the exits. Her hands hovered over the keyboard. "You're sure about this?" he'd asked on the walkover. "I worked at a library for 2 years. You'd be surprised what you learn when people think you're invisible." The Volkov family ran their shipping business through a legitimate company with terrible digital security. Tiana had found their employee portal in under 5 minutes. Victor's login credentials had been even easier. He used the same password for everything, including his old email account that he'd never bothered to change. Her fingers flew across the keys. Years of staying invisible had made her careful, methodical. She knew how to clear browser history, how to bounce her connection through proxy servers, and how to look like just another person checking their email. Victor's inbox was a goldmine. Messages to Dimitri, meeting locations, payment schedules, and, her breath caught, a text file labeled Kim_Intel. She opened it, read it twice to make sure she wasn't imagining things. Inside were details about Hyun-Bin's organization in Seoul, names of people who'd stayed loyal, safe house locations, financial accounts, everything someone would need to finish taking over the Jade Serpent Syndicate. But there was something else, a name she recognized from Hyun-Bin's story. Min Jun wasn't just working with the Russians. He was already in the city, had been there for 2 weeks. "Found something," she whispered. Hyun-Bin was beside her in seconds.
He read the screen, his face going hard. "It's a trap," he said quietly. "They're using Victor to draw me out. Min-Jun wants to finish this personally. Tiana saved everything on a flash drive. Then let's give him what he wants." The warehouse was exactly where the email said it would be, empty and cold, with broken windows that let in the dying light. Hyun-Bin walked through the door first, hands visible, no weapon drawn. Tiana followed, 3 steps behind, her heart hammering so hard she thought everyone could hear it. They weren't alone. Min-Jun stood in the center of the space, flanked by 4 men with guns. He looked like Hyun-Bin might in another universe. Sharp suit, cold eyes, the posture of someone who'd never been told no. "Cousin," Min-Jun said, and the word dripped with poison. "You were dead, I heard." "I was. You made sure of that." To the left, Victor sat on a crate, his broken wrist still bandaged. When he saw Tiana, his face twisted with something between triumph and rage. "Tiana, baby, this has gone far enough. Come here. These people will let you go if you just—" "Shut up, Victor," Tiana said. Her voice didn't shake. She was surprised by that. Dimitri and the thin man stood near the back door, blocking the exit. Everyone was exactly where Hyun-Bin had predicted they'd be. "You've significantly troubled," Min-Jun continued, pulling out a gun. "Running, hiding like a rat, making me look weak in front of the families. I should have killed you myself instead of hiring amateurs." "Probably," Hyun-Bin agreed. "But you always preferred letting others do your dirty work. And you always thought you were better than everyone else." Min-Jun's finger moved to the trigger. "Any last words?" Hyun-Bin smiled. It was the coldest thing Tiana had ever seen. "Yes, you should have checked the warehouse before you got here." That's when the lights went out, and all hell broke loose. The darkness lasted 3 seconds, long enough for chaos to root take. Muzzle flashes lit the warehouse like lightning. Tiana dropped to the ground as Hyun-Bin had taught her, covering her head. Shouts in Korean and Russian echoed off concrete walls. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. Then emergency lights flickered on, dim and red, painting everything in blood tones. Hyun-Bin's people, the ones who'd stayed loyal, the ones Tiana had contacted using the information from Victor's emails, had come through the back entrance and the roof. They moved like shadows, fast and silent, surrounding Min-Jun's group before anyone could react. Min-Jun tried to run, made it 5 steps before one of Hyun-Bin's men caught him, driving him to his knees. The gun clattered away across the floor. Dimitri and the thin man surrendered without a fight, professional enough to know when they were beaten. But Victor ran, bolted for the side door like a rabbit. All his earlier confidence evaporated. Tiana was faster. She'd spent 18 months being afraid of him, 18 months making herself small. But fear and small were choices, and she was done choosing them. She tackled him before he reached the exit. They went down hard, Victor cursing and swinging wildly. His fist caught her shoulder, but the pain felt distant, unimportant. "You ruined everything. I loved you. I gave you everything." "You gave me bruises and nightmares," Tiana said. She pinned his arms, surprised by her own strength. "You're giving them back." Hyun-Bin appeared beside her, pulling Victor up by the collar. "The police are on their way. They'll find enough evidence in your emails to put you away for a long time. Conspiracy, racketeering, assault." He leaned close. "You'll be someone's property now. See how you like it." Victor's face went white. "Take him outside," Hyun-Bin ordered. 2 of his people dragged Victor away. 3 months later, Tiana stood in a small art studio with paint under her nails and sunlight streaming through windows she didn't have to keep covered. The canvas in front of her was half-finished, bold strokes of color that didn't hide or apologize. She'd forgotten how good it felt to create something just because she wanted to, not because it was safe. The door opened. Hyun-Bin came in carrying coffee, his tie loose, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. "Your exhibition coordinator called," he said, setting the cup beside her easel. "They want 3 more pieces by next month." "That's ambitious. Think I can do it?" "I think you can do anything." After the warehouse, after the police and the lawyers and the endless statements, Hyun-Bin's people asked him to come back to Seoul, take his rightful place, rebuild the empire Min-Jun had tried to steal. He said no. Power's just another kind of cage, he'd told them, echoing Tiana's words. I'm done living in cages. We both started over. New city, new names on paper, but our real ones in practice. Hyun-Bin did consulting work for legitimate businesses now, helping them balance books that actually needed balancing. Tiana painted and was preparing for her first gallery show. Some nights she still woke up afraid. Some nights he still checked the locks 3 times. But they were healing, together, learning that safety didn't mean hiding. Jack's called too, Hyun-Bin said. Wants to know if we're coming to his wedding. Are we? Do you want to? Tiana looked at her painting, then at him, the man who'd protected her when he could have run, who'd chosen her over power, who still asked her what she wanted instead of deciding for her. Yeah, she said. I want to live in the light now.
He smiled. Then that's what we'll do. Tiana went from victim to warrior. Hyun-Bin traded an empire for a paintbrush and coffee. They both chose love over power, light over shadow. Would you have made the same choice? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.